Okay, I know my videos aren't for everybody, and you know, I make them awful long. This is 2 days observation, and this is really meant for people that want to basically have the observational proof that something's going on this horizontal plane. And I'm really, you know, been observing this horizon for an awful long time, and there's things that I notice that, you know, seem to change all the time. One, a lot of times I get a lot of the mirroring. Again, this was one of those days where I did not get the mirroring. We had some overcast, some clouds in the sky, blocking things out, or blocking out the light, which I think the light plays a big role in what we see out on that horizontal plane. I look at it as if you get a mirage at the surface of the water, and that mirage is what actually hides boats. Also, there's a lot of mirroring that goes on out there, which is like, I look at it as the first part above the visible water line where the mirroring occurs, and then that mirroring deflects our vision upward, and also cuts things off. In other words, it's like the object or the boat is going under the mirror curtain. It's like a curtain, and it can hide objects. Because normally, if you've watched some of my videos, there's a lot of things that, if you pay attention to detail, that you'll see that really don't quite make sense. The scientific, I should say, just blab that we get from science of what's going on out on the horizon. So I do observational videos to you know, prove my points and prove that what we are always seeing isn't what we're always told, and that's for damn sure. So I did a 2-day observation, not exactly at the same times, so you can't compare them perfectly, but there's a lot of things you can compare. My camera height is, well, basically my camera's sitting on a picnic table, and it's lowered down. My camera tripod is able to be almost flattened out, but it was kind of raining a little bit while I was there, so I wanted to make sure my camera stayed out of the rain. So in turn, I got under one of the little pavilions that they've got there with picnic tables on, flattened out or lowered out my tripod, and I do believe that you will see it in the video. I can't say my camera height is exactly the same height on both days, but they're pretty darn close. I figured that I had 2 to 3 foot drop off the seawall, and there was 3 to 4 feet up to my camera. And I'm going to say, you know, my camera was no higher than 7 foot at the most from the surface of the water. Maybe a little lower, but I didn't measure it, and it's kind of hard to measure your camera height and then how high off the water, you know, or how far down the water is from the seawall. It's kind of hard to give a perfect measurement of that. But I mainly went out here to do some sun videos. But when I started looking around, you know, I noticed that, wow, you know, I got great visibility again today, and I was able to see things that I normally see cut off. In other words, a lot of the boats that I normally see out here look like they're being cut off. And, you know, the Glovers want to say that it's being cut off by the horizon, that the boat is going over the curve. But there's more out there than what meets the eye. And that's what my observations are all about. Um, so, you know, I also get complaints about how I zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, and zoom out. If people don't like the way I do my own observations, because these are for my own personal use, but I do share them with people that want to watch them. Um, so, you know, if you don't like the way I do my observations, then you do not have to watch my observations. I don't think that my observations are for everybody because they are long, but you know, how else can I go out there and do observations without showing you the full observation? Um, so, you know, my outlook on it is if you want to learn from observing, you have to show your whole video. Now, I didn't manipulate um, any of this in my conversion program. Um, I didn't use any uh, enhancement. I didn't use any saturation or brightness. Um, but in a couple of spots, I did change um, my compensation exposure um, in on the camera, but not anything in the when I'm as I'm converting it to go onto YouTube. So I also know, hey, I'm not the greatest speaker out here, and I wing things. I put them up on the screen, and I tell you how I see it, and that's the best I can do. I'm not a great editor, as you well know. I don't try to put graphics and lines and whatnot in my videos. I try to just leave them raw and give them to you the way that they come off the camera. There are a few pictures in here that um, I did enhance, but only the pictures. Only because I think it was because the bird was moving. It gave a little blur, but when I enhanced it, it made them um, a little better focus on them. So that's why I did the pictures. Other than that, the video is left raw. I am gonna delete some of the audio, but I'm gonna leave some of the audio too, so that way you can hear what's going on in the video. It is awful windy. I've heard people tell me I ought to hang a sandbag and whatnot from my tripod, but my tripod is pretty darn heavy and it holds the ground pretty good, and it's not the tripod that shakes. I have a remote um, cam head on it that allows me to rotate left and right 360 degrees and up and down, 15 degrees down, 15 degrees up. So it gives me a 30-degree up and down motion of my camera without having to grab a hold of the tripod and move it up and down. But that's where I get the shake from. Now, I do show you some boats. I do show you some of the sun. I do put a solar filter on. I do take it back off so you can get the full blunt. But, if you looked at that little picture right there as I zoomed back, you got this almost pyramid shape, almost like two parallel lines. And I should have slowed that part down, but, if you want to go back and check it out. But if you take two parallel lines at 3 miles apart, and you're standing in the middle, 3 miles to the left, 3 miles to the right, eventually those parallel lines will meet in the middle. And if you look at it in my point of view, those two lines would almost create a straight horizon. But again, as you looked again just a little bit ago in the video, it showed more of a pyramid shaped look going towards the sunlight. All right. So that's one of the things that I observe. I try to pay a lot of attention to detail, and a lot of times why it takes me so long to even make my videos, I make it, um, believe it or not, um, I put it in slow motion, and then I watch it all in slow motion and try to pick out small details in it that I normally would not pay attention to because the video moves so fast. Like a lot of times I don't notice the sunspots on it, but when I get it home and I put it on my computer, these sunspots stand out. Why? Because I'm looking at a bigger screen instead of the, what is it, 2.5, 3-inch viewfinder on your camera. So it is very hard to see those sunspots when you're, doing the video and you're looking at that screen. It's tough. So again, I'm going to let this go back to the original audio here shortly and just let you listen. And every now and then I'm going to cut out part of it and chime in and give you my my thoughts, my opinions of what I see. All right, thanks. I appreciate all my subscribers that do like my long observations. It inspires me to keep doing more. But I am at the point where I almost want to stop posting them on YouTube, make them unlisted, and then you as the viewer, as my subscriber, if you want, what you can do is send me a private message, ask to see my observations, and I'll be more than happy to give you the links to the unlisted ones. And you can use whatever you want off of them. I don't try to hold a credit or copyright on them, and I really don't care too much about the credit anymore. You can ask for credit, and whoever wants to give it to you gives it to you. Whoever don't. I'm sure there's people that have used my footage and never gave me the credit for being the photographer or video photographer, whatever you want to call me. Just don't call me late for dinner, please. I'm always hungry. So here I am taking the filter off, giving you the view that I would normally see on the camera. And that's one thing too. Sometimes when you're viewing the sun and you get to a certain zoom, the blue sky will almost appear as clouds, but it's actually blue sky. And that is deceiving because sometimes people think that those are clouds, but it actually is blue sky, and that blue sky will go behind or appear to go behind the sun. So these are little things that I pick up while doing my observations, and then looking for those small details. Also, when the sun gets to the left or right of the camera, you will see it also brighten up, and it bleeds right through any clouds that are in front of it. But when you center it, you will, all these clouds seem to reappear back in front of it. All right, well, here back to the original audio. Actually, wait a minute, I wanted to talk about this part. You see this bird rack that's way out there. I very, very seldomly catch this thing, but there it is again. And that bird rack is probably 7 to 8 miles offshore, so I don't know why I would be able to see it. And then off to the right of that bird rack, here in a second I'll slide over, there's another object out there that's another bird rack, and look at how prospectively how much difference the size of those look. So again, paying attention to these small details help. I was following this one boat, and even the size of that boat, you can still see the water being splashed up from the boat's wake, and you can also see the smoke that it's putting out through its exhaust. But I seen this other boat on even further out, and if you look at the mast and all, and even the bottom of the boat, you can still see that that boat is in the water. Also, what you see is that, like, the mast is almost invisible, where the camera, I mean, it's at such a distance, the camera can't render everything, and it's all due to the angular resolution that I'm getting. You know, if my camera can't render it, it can't put it on film. But you can obviously still see the whole back of this boat in the water, and you got to take perspective into consideration that the farther that boat gets out, the smaller it is, and the smaller it is, from the water to the top of the boat is going to also be smaller. Plus, you got to also consider that my camera is able to resolve the closer waves to the boat, and those waves are closer to me than the boat is. So again, the waves can block out parts of this boat. You'd have to picture it in your mind, and also think about you know, how far that boat is away. So you know, you got to take into consideration a lot of things about rendering, light, shading, how much light's coming into the aperture of the camera, which way the light source is from. All these things play a big role in how we see, and even how my camera sees. So my camera can't see forever either. So there's a point where it can't render the object, so the object starts to just fade away. Now too, you notice that there's no mirroring in here. If I had a lot of mirroring occurring or miraging going on, I would only see the very tip top of that boat and nothing else below it. And you can see this in a lot of my other videos. Now I put a piece of my cell phone footage in here so you can see where my camera's setting. Here it comes. So I wanted to give you a perspective of where my camera was, and you know, I even go up to the seawall, show you how far down the water is. Now if I'm standing up next to my camera, it's about chest level, sitting on the picnic table there, maybe even a little bit lower, about right in the middle of my diaphragm. Then, you know, I look over the seawall and I see that the water's 2.5, 3 feet down, and that's about it. So, you know, I just wanted to throw this piece in to give you an idea, like I said, give you a perspective of where I'm standing at, and also give you a nice view of that sun out there, by the way, or you know, the sunlight hitting the water. All right, I'm going to let this go back to the natural or normal audio again, and there's the boat. I even videotaped the boat, but I think I put this in a little quick. beep sound you heard was when I actually took the video with my cell phone camera. I should have split the film right there and stuck it in at this point, but I don't think that's a big difference. And I'm also talking right over the audio on this, so I just wanted to bring that to your mind, and then you'll hear the beep again when I shut the camera off. So just wanted to bring that to your attention too, that I misplaced my cell phone footage. You gotta see this sun. I gotta stop from this. Okay, here I got kind of a crappy focus, but hey, I make mistakes too, and I don't always get the best focus, and I'm willing to admit it, and I'm willing to show it. But you know, as I zoom back, of course, it comes right back into focus really nicely. Um, so you know, I don't try to hide anything in my observations, and that's why I make them so long. So you see pretty much everything. I don't cut much out. Um, I show you my good parts, my bad parts. To me, it's like, you know, I'm not perfect. Yeah, sometimes I do have some out of focus video. And in the second day part, um, I was using the same settings, the same focus, everything, and I just had a hard time getting a good focus. Even in this, I had a hard time getting a good focus, but um, I think you know, when you're zooming in on a light source and you try to focus in on it, sometimes it doesn't get a completely nice focus. Um, but you know, the way I do it is I use the infinity mode. I zoom all the way out and try to focus on the farthest object, whether it be a cloud or something out there far away from me. Focus the camera in by pushing the picture button, and once I get a good focus, I hit the record button. And then when I zoom in and out, I don't have to worry about kind of keep focusing it in and out, because it pretty much keeps its own focus, which is nice. And that's why I use this method. You know, there's a lot of guys out there that want to use the manual focus, which is fine, but sometimes, like I say, I have the sun gleaming right back in my eyes because I do a lot of, you know, video on the horizon as the sun is out. and it blinds me from actually being able to see my screen really well to get a good focus. So if I can get a good focus in the very beginning, I think it makes all the whole video in focus. Here I'm showing you the corpuscular rays. The rays that look like they're going straight up in the air are not going straight up in the air. They're coming straight across the sky. And I do believe even some of the other ones in the background are going, I wouldn't say parallel to the ground, but you know, they are going downward also. It all depends on how you look at it. Now, of course, two people standing in two different places will see two different things, but basically they're going to see the same thing that you're seeing if they're within a certain distance of you. But somebody a mile or two away is going to see everything in their own perspective. But that doesn't make us live in a simulated world. It just gives somebody else that has a different angle view than you do. You know, when it rains and I see a rainbow, somebody else might not see that rainbow, depending on where they're at. And I usually find that you will always see the rainbow with the sun at your back, not in front of you with the sun in front of you. I don't think I've ever seen a rainbow that was in front of me with the sun being in front of it. It's always at your back. But I love doing the sun. That's one of my passions because every sunset is different. So, you know, I like what I do. I mean, actually, I love what I do. I'm an avid fisherman, but I've found another passion that I'm very passionate about, and I almost think I'm almost as passionate about this as I am about fishing. Now, you know, people say, oh, you're a fisherman, you go out and kill fish. Well, I'll tell you what, 99% of the fish that I catch, I release very carefully back into the water. And the only fish that I keep are the fish that I want. Or if I injure them where I don't think that they're going to survive, I do take them home, fillet them, and eat them. Or I give them to a friend of mine that, you know, has asked me to give them some fish. But, you know, again, this is what I like doing. I enjoy it. And I started doing it for my own personal research, my own personal observations. But, you know, I found that some of this stuff was so beautiful. And also when I started researching into flat earth, I thought it would be very nice to share my videos. And like I know that, you know, some people don't have 3 hours to sit there and watch a video. But, you know, if you have time to sit down and watch 3 or 4 Hollywood movies and want to, you know, shit on your brain with that crap, or would you rather watch a good observation of some natural footage? You know, and that's one of the things that I spend more time watching my own videos, even though I went out and seen it with my own 2 eyes. I enjoy watching my own videos. I sit back, relax, put them on my big screen TV, and I really enjoy it. It's pretty surreal, you know, when you're looking at real footage of a real horizon instead of a Hollywood background, green screen input. The way I look at it is this is much better, and I'm not corrupting my brain with a lot of Hollywood crap. Now, don't get me wrong, I watch movies too, you know, but I pick and choose what I want to watch, and I also know that you know, there's a lot of green screen technology that goes into a lot of movies, and I mean, you can pick it out. You can tell that they're not actually, the background is not actually where they're at. They very seldomly shoot anymore on natural areas. So, you know, mostly what you see is a lot of CGI. But mine is not CGI. It's all real footage. And you know, like I said, I hope most people enjoy what I do. I don't have tons of subscribers. I'm a small fry out there, and I know it. And again, like I said in the beginning, I don't make really well edited videos. One of the things, like I was saying before, about where when you move your camera around and you see, you know, how bright the sun is, and if it's not centered properly, you will get a lot of glare from the sun. The sun will bleed through those clouds, and you know, you'll swear that those clouds are going behind the sun, but when you actually zoom in and get the proper focus, proper exposure, um, and if you're using a solar filter, you will definitely see these clouds going in front of the sun. Now, I took my solar filter off, and this is just the camera itself, but I did turn down my compensation exposure to where the light of the sun isn't quite so bright if it's centered in the screen. Now, you just seen how that light was burning through all of the other clouds, or bleeding through all the other clouds, and that's because I'm at a different angle to it, and at a different angle the light is entering the aperture of the camera just like our eyes, at a different angle, so you will get a different look of it. In other words, you will pick up more of the exposure, and then the sun or the light will be overexposed and just be a big you know, blob of light in the sky. Like right here, you still see that real bright sun. That's because the clouds that are around it are a lot thinner. Now, I think I set my, I just kind of put my solar lens over it just to kind of expose some of the clouds in front of the sun for a short second. I didn't screw it on, I just set it up in front of the sun. But as the sun gets a little bit lower, and you see as I move my light, you can obviously see these clouds in front of the sun. They're never going behind the sun, and I realized that, you know. And when I first got into this, I swore to God I saw clouds going behind the moon and the sun. But as I found out more how to use this camera and learn how the exposure levels can really give you a different look, and if it's overexposed, the clouds will appear to be going behind the sun or the moon. But proper exposure, you will not see this. Now I'm going to go back to the natural audio again here shortly, so I might chime in again, who knows.